and good afternoon, Smite fans. My name is F. Dot, and I'm joined here by Adonis, and we're going to bring you Friday's best SPL games.
Epsilon taking on Myrmidons here to open up the day. After that, we'll be followed, I believe, by... I completely forgot.
We're gonna have Cog versus Denial.
It's Cog versus Denial. Yeah. No, that's
take a look at the schedule real quick, not just for today's games, but also the weekend. Hope you'll be joining us on Saturday and Sunday. Like we said, Europe is how we're going to start things off today. Epsilon versus Myrmidons with Cognitive versus Denial rounding things out, and then Saturday and Sunday also 4 sets each.
Make sure to look at the end of Saturday. That's going to be tomorrow. It's Eager versus Cloud9. That's our game of the week. You can actually go to esports.smitegame.com, submit your vote on who you think's going to take that one, whether it's a split, whether it's Eager 2-0, or whether it's Cloud9 2-0, and have your shot at winning some gems.
You can earn real gems by just using your esports knowledge there for the match of the week. Personally, I'm actually looking forward to the last game possible. It's going to be Denial versus Elevate. And I think that's an interesting situation for the standings and how that's concerned. And while these teams battle it out to figure out who goes to regionals, you guys can battle it out amongst yourselves to see who lines their pockets. AlphaDraft.com is an exciting website where you can use your esports knowledge to earn real money.
Earn some real money. No, Alpha Draft's awesome. Make sure to get your picks in. Once again, it's locked 24 hours in advance, so you're not going to be able to sign up for today's games or the first half of tomorrow's, but you can make sure to get your picks in for Sunday and have your shot at winning that real money.
For sure.
I'm not doing that ever again. I am not doing that ever again.
Thank you. So it's going to be a very exciting situation as far as those games are concerned. And, of course, all of these games are just a part of the puzzle where teams will wind up going to Smite World Championships. And it's not just locked to players. You can make it, too. If you visit swc.smitegame.com, you guys can get your own tickets and join us, not just me and Adonis, but all 5 casters here, and as well as everybody part of the hi-rez family. And don't forget the players that actually make it. We'll take 6 teams to regionals, and then past that, we're going to boil it down to even smaller, so you'll be able to see some of your top teams performing.
It's 6 teams into regionals, but that's each regional. But we're actually having both regionals here at hi-rez. So the super regionals will be 12 teams at hi-rez Studios, whittled down to 5 members of North America and Europe to represent kind of our half of the Smite Pro League into the World Championship. But there's also going to be an Oceania team, a Brazilian team, a Latin American team, 2 Chinese teams. It's going to be a lot of Smite, and I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as it was last year at SWC.
I agree.
Because there was a lot of, most of the regions, they had just got Smite. They had just, somewhere it's still in beta. They didn't have all the gods. This time, though, it's going to be great.
We've got a lot of high-octane competition going on, but don't worry. If esports isn't your thing, well, it is because you're watching today, but there are other things going on at the Smite World Championship as well. We're going to have numerous meetups as well as a cosplay contest. Very interesting stuff, of course, heralded by some of the people here at hi-rez, and you'll be able to win a lot of $25,000 in prizes.
$20,000. You need glasses, Tom.
Prizes for the SW. I actually really do need glasses, but that's a huge money pit.
It's broken up into multiple categories as well, and one of the categories that's actually not listed on there is best group. And that's not only combination of gods, but it's whatever you want to make for your group, and me and Hindu are actually planning on doing Bacchus. So I'm going to be the king of Bacchus, and he's going to be Christmas. Christmas.
I will watch that a lot.
And then we're going to go and we're going to cast also in the costumes after chugging wine.
Don't worry, folks. I'll make sure they don't cast in those costumes. And following up, all that's happening at Smite World Championships. But if you want something you can get your hands on right now, this weekend, we've got a sale going on with our skins. It's called the Sun God Skin Sale. You've got Kepri,
No, it's called Praise the Sun. It literally says Praise the Sun right there.
You've got Kepri, Ra, Ho-Yi, and Apollo.
It's to celebrate Soul releasing. So Soul, the newer god, not on sale, even though she is basically a part of that as well. Earn double the fantasy points and enjoy 50% off all of these gods this weekend only.
Yeah, so it's everybody, all of Soul's friends essentially invite her and party with her as she enters the battlefield. Their newest god, Soul, going to be there. So that's going to be very exciting, but why don't we talk about what's going on here today? We've got Myrmidons versus Epsilon, two sides of the standings, but of course, Myrmidons is a team that has taken games off of the top squads before. We'll see if they have the luck running this time around.
Yeah, they were able to take out Titan a couple weeks ago, but to be fair, it was a struggling Titan. This Myrmidons roster that you're going to see on screen here, for me, I'm looking at the duo lane.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Bruise brothers. It's Jermaine and Dardes. And, you know, one of the pros actually mentioned it to me. I don't recall who, but they basically said that this team and Elevate have a lot of similarities, most notably in that they only know how to go in, right? and that's actually why you see them lose sometimes, right? They don't know how to, like, play a later game. They don't know how to, like, be a little bit passive and make some of these more in-depth strategies. But when they go in and when they can get a lead, especially once Jermaine gets a lead, this team can snowball against the best.
And for what it's worth, that's where a lot of teams sort of start out with. They know how to be aggressive.
Yes,
they don't know how to follow up. Early game teams wind up being mid-game teams and then complete teams. And that's kind of the story of Envy. So don't forget, all these teams started someplace. Myrmidons, you talked about the dual lane. They're very strong. But the solo lane, of course, LeMoGow, definitely a player to look out for. Now, Myrmidons, as we said, they're on the bottom of the standings, but they can go up. Let's take a look at the snapshot of how EU looks all together. And Epsilon still up at the top, only one loss to their name. Myrmidons will be trying to take out at least one, maybe even two games today, and push themselves to 7-15.
One loss. They've played 20 games, and Epsilon has one loss. This team is so phenomenal, and you know, last split they just barely missed out on LAN, and I really think they took that to heart. I think that was crushing. You know, iRaffer was banned, unfortunately, for I believe 2 weeks, and they lost 3 games during that duration. Those 3 games could have meant the difference between them qualifying and not.
Yeah, I agree with that much. And before I was talking about MoGow, his direct competition today will be Dimi. Dimi is a player that, I mean, with Raffer and adapting on this team, and Yammyn has especially made some highlight plays as of late. Dimi doesn't get a lot of the spotlight, but what's so interesting about Dimi is that he's been playing so many different gods. I mean, Dimi's most played gods over his entire career are Nuwa, Kronos, and Loki. 3 gods that are they're basically completely different. And the past couple of weeks have all been warriors for the most part. So this guy can bring a lot of different things to the table and is almost a wild card in that solo lane.
He's also incredibly hard to kill. I think heading into, was it week 6 or week 7, he had played 16 games and only had 6 deaths. Yeah. I mean, he's just hard to kill and lock down. He's a very mobile player. His positioning very similar to Cyclone Spin in that he comes in and cleans up fights and escapes deaths multiple times when he almost should have been locked down.
It'll be an interesting situation to see what Dimi elects to pick, as well as the rest of the squad. Let's get into picks and bans for game number 1. Myrmidons taking on Epsilon, the top team in Europe.
Order side, it's going to be Myrmidons, Epsilon, rocking the Chaos side. They also will have the counter pick wherever they elect to put it. Bans coming through, Khepri taken out by Myrmidons. And it's always safe to ban this Khepri, incredibly powerful, provides a lot of protection and a res. But I think most notably, it's important against the Bruise Brothers dueling because they like to fight, right? You don't want the other team to have Khepri to keep players alive and keep them res. Myrmidons, a lot of it is about finding those early game kills and picks, and the later it goes, we tend to see them start to fall off. So taking out that Khepri, pretty vital to their plan.
Epsilon going to go ahead and take off Giannis. So no escape routes for Myrmidons when and if they decide to go in. Sun Wukong taken off the board by Myrmidons. You can talk about how this is, you know, Dimi's good. They don't want to give it to him. At the end of the day, Sun Wukong is just a very strong pick. It is interesting to see the team with first pick elect to ban out Sun Wukong, as Aphrodite's banned out by Epsilon. No surprise. That's just their personal style. So I'm very interested to see what Myrmidons picks here in the first position, being that they banned Sun Wukong. They definitely have a clear choice, and it will be Serqet.
So, LeFaeles, newest addition to this team after Sayo departed the roster and Tens moved back to mid lane. He's had some all right games. I mean, nothing, you know, nothing stand out for me, but he hasn't made too many mistakes, and he's put out a lot of pressure on the map. And this Serqet, I like this god for him. I think it works for him.
Yeah, some of the very first day that we saw LeFaeles here on the team, he played a couple of assassins and he played a Bologna, if I'm not mistaken, and really impacted the games. They didn't necessarily come out with the wins, but you could see where that player was sitting. Thor and Nox picked up for Epsilon. So Thor, no surprise, adapting standard jungle pick. Nox, though, that's a talking point.
It's something that we haven't seen too often. Players, though, most notably in Europe, have been experimenting with it in ranked. This is actually the first Nox that we've seen this split. And I think the only other time we've seen Nox in competitive play was Divios in the solo lane at the summer finals.
Yeah.
They actually ended up losing that game. He had a great performance, though. Since then, we haven't seen Nox played. She brings a lot to the team with the amount of control, but, you know, the hardest part about her was how hard it was to hit her skill shots. Most notably, the one on her, it now cripples.
Right. Yes.
Previously, it didn't.
And
it's actually a recent buff to the god, and I think that's why I was saying before the thing was basically useless unless you're able to lock them in your Siphon Darkness and silence them out. But now that it has a cripple attached to it, we're seeing a lot more use out of it. And another cripple picked up for Ares. I mean, Serqet is going to have a rough time against Epsilon.
Yeah, Serqet is going to have a really rough time with the change to Nox. That's the biggest point taking home, is that the large circle debuff that she puts on the ground has the cripple. And while it was a combo ability to be aggressive with, now almost a defensive maneuver. Nox can drop that on her feet, and Serqet can't chase after her. Also worth noting, Agni on the other side can also be crippled out of one of his most iconic abilities with the dash. Second bands comes out. Myrmidons say no Osiris. Epsilon say no Neith.
Second half of the picking phase coming through. Epsilon looking for their hunter still, as well as a soul laner or mid, and they're going to go with AMC. Emilitoo, really the only hunter that we've seen run AMC frequently. Some players like Barracuda will experiment with it, will have their games.
I remember Blink Muzen Cobb on Reels at the LAN.
That's true.
The third place match.
Yeah, but it's third place match. That's kind of do whatever you want in the third place match sometimes when there's no money difference.
But so AMC, on a serious note, is Cupid, another not so picked hunter for Myrmidons and Kumbhakarna. We saw we can play him in the jungle, but we talked a lot. And as we get in the game, we'll discuss Kumbhakarna a little bit more. Muzen Cobb, how does he fit in, not necessarily Epsilon's lineup, but against what Myrmidons have drawn up?
I mean, it's another cripple against Serqet, and a lot of what it's going to be about is locking the Serqet down and not allowing LeFaeles to really make big plays early on, and I think they have a roster that can do that. Unfortunately, though, their team, most notably their dual lane and Ares and Amus and Cobb, can get shut down early. Like, if this dual lane gets behind early, they almost lose. Like,
this is an all
flat out.
You've heard us discuss almost ad nauseum where an Ares that gets behind can't really do much because his entire threat is damage. It's a very similar situation with a Muzen Cobb. He doesn't really have much utility outside of the honey, and the cripple is an ultimate. If you catch it, it's on a low cooldown. Now, interesting interaction as Myrmidons picked up Cupid very quickly after Epsilon locked in the Muzen Cobb. Muzen Cobb has a disarm as part of his kit. It has to do with his passive. Well, Cupid does a lot of damage with Heart Bomb. Is that the thought process that Myrmidons are going in here? You can disarm me, but oh well, I have Heart Bomb? Or is it just this is what they felt like playing?
I think this is we want to fight lane on both ends. And, iRaffer and Emilitoo combining in this dual lane, they have, like, we talk about it all the time, right? A lot of Myrmidon's success is their dueling, getting ahead, and it's really back off the back of Jermaine and Dardas making these big plays and really catching even high-end dual lanes off guard. Epsilon is saying, we're going to fight you. We're Ares AMC. That's all we do in lane. Both of these gods are all about aggression. They're all about fighting and all about forcing the other team out. But like we said, it's a risky play. They're matching up against a Cupid and a Kumbhakarna who have some combo potential. And there actually is something to this Cupid lane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very similar to...
No. There is something to this Cupid lane.
All right.
So what you do is you heart bomb a creep, and then you send the creep flying with Kumba's minion knockback into players, and it actually explodes, and you'll get the AoE damage off of it.
It's the old grenade toss. It's one of my favorites. I think it's a lot of fun. If we take a look at the beginning builds, very interesting stuff coming out of Emilitoo with the multi-pots.
Look at this rotation though from iRaffer, incredibly early, and I don't think it's been called out now, and Epsilon had that ward. I don't know if iRaffer wanted to get a kill or if it was more about securing those mid-harpies, but he's looping around once again. Serqet and Agni, they're not aware. Over in the dual lane, though, Dardas finds first blood on Emilitoo. iRaffer And emilitoo said, all right, we're going to fight the Bruise Brothers. That early rotation from iRaffer, though, left emilitoo alone, and he falls.
And I like this play coming out from the Myrmidons with First Blood because Epsilon, this isn't the first time they've done this.
iRaffer's in trouble.
Raffer
He's
is
only
in a
level
little bit
3.
of trouble.
Oh,
Heart
never
Bomb
mind.
is going to miss. That's a
Look at
big
Jermaine.
deal.
He's just like standing there like, yeah, I messed up.
Yep.
Jermaine literally just stood still. It said, yeah, I messed up. And that actually allowed iRaffer to find some chains and some more poke onto Dardes.
But so Epsilon has done this before. They send Raffer early to the mid-Harpies, and they usually, and it has in the past, wound up with a First Blood. Like you said, not sure if he's looking for the kill or just early pressure. Both have come from that in the past. Myrmidons sort of understand that. They know what's going to come out, and they just go very aggressive onto this Amusing Cobb, which early in the game, Amusing Cobb doesn't have a way to get out. AMC's whole jam of getting out of trouble, Adonis, is really movement speed, and the hives aren't leveled up just yet.
And, you know, even when he gets them leveled up, if you don't have lane control as AMC, the hives are continuously poked out every time you spawn them. That's why it's so important to be aggressive with AMC early and to have that lane pressure so you can control the pace of the lane. But losing that First Blood, it's over.
So with, well, you said it's over. How over is it? Amusing Cobb, 1 death. I don't think he's out of it, right?
No.
You're not just out of the game, but how far behind can AMC get? Because we discussed how these characters only do well from ahead or even. How far behind can AMC get? Quick dash, but not enough. Dimi secures the kill onto
LeFaeles
Dodo.
actually got rooted out as well there and crippled, but not enough damage. Epsilon just going to take the free kill. Dimi
in the solo lane as well. Dimi, a little bit of trouble, very low as LeMoGow playing his signature Hades. We didn't even mention it because more and more teams have been allowing LeMoGow to play this Hades. Very early on, it was one of the scariest things that could happen. Allow LeMoGow to get his Hades. And the first time, and it was banned a lot, the first time we saw LeMoGow on Hades, he cleaned up. But that hasn't been the situation since, and more teams have allowed this Hades to go through and even allowed him to play it.
I mean, teams have just figured out how to beat not only LeMoGow but Hades in general. Before it was Hades was picked occasionally, more notably in North America, and since then it's been picked a lot in Europe, and players just like they learned how to play against it. That's one of the strengths of certain picks is that they're not picked a lot, so players aren't familiar with their damage output or they're not aware of it, or it catches them off guard sometimes. And now that people understand how to play against Hades, it's just kind of something they're used to, and as long as they're not picking gods that are getting shut down early by it, like a Nuwa who has incredibly safe clear, they're going to be fine in lane. So that's really where that's coming from.
So a big swing in how teams feel about not just Hades, but LeMoGow's Hades specifically. Again, this is when Myrmidons came into the scene in the fall split. That was the entire conversation, really. It was LeMoGow was the person. These days, we talk a lot about the dual lane, the Bruise brothers. But when they first joined, it was all about LeMoGow's Hades. Never let this guy get Hades. Watch out. And with the blink over to the solo lane, not going to secure any sort of aggression.
Big. That's really bad for this Serqet, because that was a rank 1 blink. It's on cooldown for 140 seconds now, 150 at max rank.
Huge change.
And now, you know, LeFaeles isn't really going to have a lot of gank potential as long as Epsilon is pretty map aware and knows when the ganks are coming through. Because otherwise, LeFaeles is going to have to use movement abilities to close the gap, and then he puts himself at a lot of risk. And Epsilon is very good at turning around fights and ganks.
Looking at this dual lane one more time, just to dissect it, because it's such an interesting matchup. We've got the Cupid Kumbhakarna lane, which we discussed a little bit about the ability to sort of, the grenade. Nobody's in lane to get hit by it, but the toss of the heart bomb. Also, there's the ultimate situation. Hold that thought as the ultimate comes down in the mid lane and adapting picks up a kill for himself. Epsilon up ahead 2-1.
So I want to talk about this because we didn't mention it earlier when it first happened, because we kind of caught the tail end of it. And this is actually a combo that I was thinking of when the picks and bans came through, but I forgot to mention it here as emilitoo actually will take out a kill there. And oh man, Epsilon all across the map doesn't even give me a chance to talk about the combo, right? So adapting walks into the jungle, and then Yammyn goes inside of him, and then adapting ults in the mid, comes crashing down. They get the stun, they pop the Nox burst, and then they lock Agni in place with the roots and the silences, and then he dies. So that's what we saw there. And then emilitoo soloed Dardes.
So let's break down Nox a little bit, Kevin, for the people at home that, again, we don't normally see her. I think the last time we saw Nox played, you mentioned Divios, I believe MLC Stealth played her in the mid lane, but not only is this character seldom played, but has also seen so many different iterations of her kit. Essentially, breaking it real down just basic-wise, she's got that large circle damage that we just saw blow
Siphon
up.
Darkness.
Yeah, just blow up the opposition. She's got a long-range root, which will deal damage, root the character in place, but it's channeled, so she can't stop it.
Also
then,
crippling them now with the buff.
oh yeah, huge. Then there's the ultimate, which is large damage. But most importantly, you mentioned going inside of a character. That's the third ability. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
That's simply her dash. It's a dash move. LeMoGow, though. Yeah, LeMoGow's likely to fall here.
Thor. Spin down, adapting. 5th kill for Epsilon, 2nd kill for him specifically, and he's been involved with 4 or 5.
Oh, the counter blink coming out from iRaffer. 10's not going to get his ult off. iRaffer looking for chain. Says, yeah, his ultimate is up. They could actually go on 10's pretty hard here, but the rotation from fails. Raffer will fall. Dimi's ult just going to get some damage off. No rotation coming through just yet, though adapting. He's walking up from behind the tower. He has his ultimate available, but it looks like Myrmidons are just backing off here, and Epsilon not going to be able to get anything off of it.
Dardes not on the battlefield today. Tin's the mid laner. If you're unfamiliar with this Myrmidons
Oh,
squad.
adapting in the air. The dash is down onto Dark Dodo. No, it was up. He's going to be able to just get out of there, and Dark Dodo's in mid lane.
Yes. So
how have I not noticed this entire time?
Exactly. Dardes not on the squad today for whatever reason. So Tin's, normally the mid laner, has rotated.
No, Jermaine's not on. What am I looking at? How have I have been out of it all game. Dardes is typically the support player. He's playing right now. Twitch chat is blowing us up. Like, they are blowing us up for not noticing this at all.
There is so many other things to mention as far as the characters are concerned. But again, if you're unfamiliar with this Myrmidons lineup, Dardes, normally in the support position, he's going to be in the hunter role. Jermaine, normal hunter, not on the battlefield. So the mid laner has switched, and LeMoGow taking a lot of damage. He'll channel his ultimate to do what he can, but he will fall to the hand of Dimi. LeMoGow, one of the few players on Myrmidons that are in their natural position today.
Yeah, LeFaeles is the new jungler. Dark Dodo was the previous jungler, getting replaced by LeFaeles eventually, but Myrmidons, they still have him on as a substitute at least, filling in for that mid lane role as Tins goes to support, and then Dardes, their normal support, moves to hunter. Jermaine's the one that we're missing here.
Exactly. So this is an interesting situation as far as Myrmidons is concerned, because what a lot of people talk about when it comes to substitutes is their ability to play multiple positions, or really lack thereof. Kills
Dimi.
Again, is it going to be
Last
enough?
breath, it should be enough. 2 ticks, I believe. Yeah,
One
it
more?
should have one more tick. No, just barely. Not enough damage. Fails.
But so the players on Myrmidons are all swapped around with the exception of LeMoGow, as Dodo takes more damage, and another death in the mid lane off of Yammyn, and adapting here to secure the death onto Tins as well. That's 2 for 0 in the mid.
I mean, Myrmidons honestly look lost this game. Like,
I mean,
that's the best way to describe it. I mean, even with their sub, they're just there's all these fights. Epsilon are just forcing fights. 2v1, 3v2, 3v1. And Myrmidons are not responding at all in any shape or form here. And we are seeing them just get picked off repeatedly, one at a time. And
right. And in my position, Kevin, it's less about the substitute and more about the players, the regular players in different positions. The fact that they're just not in their natural positions, everybody playing something different, that's going to throw off the team just a little bit.
Yeah, let's take a look at Yammyn versus Dark Dodo. Dark Dodo, these are typically jungler stats, but so he hasn't been a part of a single one of Myrmidon's wins back when he was the jungler. And he's matching up against Yammyn, who has become one of the premier mid laners, not only in Europe, but in the world. That's kind of where you see the disparity. And that KDA from Yammyn's incredibly high. Typically, we saw a lot of Giannis from him early on in the split. Very hard to lock down and kill. Much like all of Epsilon, more specifically Dimi. And Yammyn, he's just such a mobile player. He's so good at rotations and really shutting down any other supports who rotate onto him. So...
And Yammyn has been a sleeper hit. Here's the combination coming out from the boys on Myrmidons, and there's a knock-up into Dardes' ultimate. Cupid ultimately claims the kill. That's the 3rd kill on the side of the blue team. Myrmidons still trail.
2,000 in the lead is Epsilon right now. Getting that kill onto emilitoo, incredibly important, because Dardes was able to secure first blood onto emilitoo, but since then, we actually saw Tins and Dardes play incredibly passive, even to their tower, which is understandable because they're up against Adapting's Thor. And Adapting, we've seen it most notably in the mid lane, likes to put a lot of pressure on lanes. He doesn't necessarily prioritize farming, he prioritizes invading and shutting down individual players. But because of that, Dardes wasn't able to really take advantage of that first blood. Getting a second kill, though, that's a good look on him.
Dardes taking some damage, and here comes the rest of Epsilon to secure it. There was a pull, but Adapting makes sure he shuts down the kill before it even comes into play. Hammer, on the way back, takes out the life of Cupid. Myrmidons suffer another death to put 9 in their D column.
And Myrmidons, they rotate over, trying to make something happen, but with emilitoo coming off of death, they're not able to really take that fight. Numbers advantage in the way of Epsilon.
Problematic start here for Myrmidons, and looking at what's going on here for this team, I imagine that as these games go on, the players will get more and more comfortable because, as I said, my personal take off of this is LeFaeles narrowly escaped some trouble, is not the substitute, but the fact that players are in different positions. You've got LeFaeles and LeMoGow playing their normal positions, but don't forget, jungle is extremely reliant on what your other lanes are doing.
And if your other lanes are losing, sometimes there's this pace to the jungle where you're either making stuff happen, you're responding to what's happening, or you're kind of just farming next to the other jungler. And right now, it's Adapting, forcing fights. And by the time LeFaeles actually rotates into those lanes, the kill's already over. He's there literally just to soak up the free wave of XP. And because of that, LeFaeles hasn't been able to make any plays of his own. We saw the one time where he actually went into solo lane, blinks over the wall, but Dimi knew it was coming. He was actually behind his tower. LeFaeles wasn't able to hit the taunt, and it was kind of just that meant 3 minutes where he wasn't going to be able to do anything with blink down.
Gold Fury looking to make something happen here near the dual lane. Wards are covered for Myrmidons, so Epsilon knows exactly where they are. Gold Fury going to be taken by Epsilon as we focused in on what iRaffer's doing. And iRaffer was really just there for show. He was pushing the players out of position so they couldn't come to the Gold Fury. And iRaffer himself secures the kill onto Tins.
emilitoo, actually, I believe that, yeah, so that actually hit him, so he's going to take less damage to that tower, Adapting, rotating in, locking down Dark Dodo. Now iRaffer and emilitoo combining for another kill onto Dardes. LeMoGow, his rotation was able to pick up Adapting, but...
Which it should have. Epsilon just went extremely aggressive here.
What is LeMoGow doing?
LeMoGow's walking into 3. He sees low people, and he is 14 for what it's worth. He wants to pick up iRaffer.
What is LeFaeles doing?
They're trying to get something. LeFaeles will pick up iRaffer with a long-range taunt, and he might escape here, actually. LeMoGow most likely won't. He won't. emilitoo will make sure he falls, but Epsilon went so deep there, Kevin. There's no fear on this team. I mean, they're ahead by 5,000 gold at the 14-minute mark. There's just no fear as Yammyn picks up yet again another kill.
Yeah, I mean, LeMoGow and LeFaeles, they rotated back in, only able to pick up iRaffer, who is 100% fine with his death, and then they lose LeMoGow and LeFaeles, who at first managed to escape. That, I mean, that was just an incredibly risky play from a team. But maybe that's what Myrmidons have to do. I mean, they're so far behind. Sometimes you have to make risky plays and try and, get ahead of the other team mechanically. But you're up against Epsilon when you're trying to outplay someone in mechanics. And that's probably not, like, most other teams in Europe, it's like, all right, I could take the risk. Maybe I can out-mechanic them. Epsilon, though?
I mean, they're a rough
Epsilon,
team.
though?
They're definitely a top-tier team. Let's take a look at the graphs and see how much that interaction really swung the game in their favor. And take a look, 5,100 gold for Epsilon. Prior to that swing, they were leading by about 2,500. Epsilon doubles their lead after a couple of kills, extreme over-aggression after the Gold Fury, and the experience telling the same story. 11,000 experience.
I mean, Dimi's 2 levels on the solo lane, 3 levels onto Thor,
Jungle.
3 levels in the mid lane. iRaffer about even, emilitoo about even as well, and that's the couple kills that we have seen come out from that dual lane on the side of Myrmidons. Dardes forced to ult there to make sure that Tins can escape the pressure that iRaffer's putting out, but Adapting, and there's that combo once again. Yammyn, he jumps into Adapting comes landing down, and they just locked down a single target with insane burst.
Yeah, so again, just to break that down, because I think we got interrupted while we were explaining it before.
I mean, there's been fights nonstop.
Exactly. Nox's dash. If she targets a teammate, she'll actually go inside. The two players will combine. So you can dash into the Thor while he's ulting, and when Thor crashes down, if he does it quick enough, two players show up instead of one, and it's just the surprise factor. And Epsilon really utilizing it to their advantage. They're just going to siege this tower. There's really not much they think Myrmidons can follow up with. LeMoGow will ultimate to avoid the iRaffer pull, and he'll escape, but LeFaeles won't. Unfortunately for him, emilitoo gets the credit for that one. Here comes adapting. He gets one. Looking for the second. The root and the damage. Yammyn gets the 1-2 punch. That's another kill on top of the mid laner. And Epsilon ignoring the towers, going directly for the kills. Tins will take another nap, and he's going to sit down for the 4th time this game.
This game is basically over. I mean, it's 20 kills to 5. And Myrmidons, they're completely outclassed this match. I mean, they were able to find the early lead in the dual lane, which is what, I highlighted I felt that they needed to do. And then they were just so passive with it, which is understandable, right? They're up against a Thor. They're up against Adapting's Thor. And if you can't get the ward vision, it's incredibly risky to try and abuse that advantage. But at the same time, maybe they should have abused that advantage. Maybe they should have pushed emilitoo and iRaffer under tower. And, when Thor rotates in, you relieve pressure off of LeMoGow. And more importantly, Dark Dodo, who was ganked 3, 4, maybe even 5 times by the 10-minute mark.
I mean, Dark Dodo has 5 deaths on himself, and you can't really credit that to him playing up too far or lack of vision. It's just been Epsilon being extremely aggressive. I mean, 20 kills on this team, and a lot of them came from Epsilon diving tier 2 towers at 10 minutes. That's not, unfortunately, you can't really blame Myrmidons. They're not doing anything crazy.
Adapting, looking to lock down LeMoGow once again. Beads are forced, fear coming out, but LeMoGow, he's done. No, he's actually just done. He's just like standing there with the rotation of the rest of Epsilon. But it looks actually like the rest of Myrmidons have rotated in, and actually they're catching Yammyn off to the side. Meanwhile, emilitoo, he's standing tall against LeMoGow. emilitoo comes out of the top of that one. Dimi takes to the sky as well.
Kill onto iRaffer as he takes down Dark Dodo. Dark Dodo puts himself on the board earlier by securing a kill, when he'll collect his 6th death of the contest at the hand of Epsilon's support player. So
Myrmidons actually did have a good play there. They rotated in finally as a team, and were able to cut off Yammyn and emilitoo, and emilitoo almost fell as well. It was an incredibly close fight, and if LeMoGow was able to come out on top of that, that would have been an equal trade for the team. Unfortunately, though, all they can do is shut down Yammyn, who is caught off alone by himself. If we saw these plays and more importantly, these rotations and groupings earlier from Myrmidons, I think this might be a different game, or at least a closer game. But instead, I mean, at this point, it's 22 kills to 6.
And that right there is in the minds of Myrmidons. I mean, you saw what happened over there in the solo lane, where, it was very obvious how frustrated LeMoGow was. That was not going to be any different however fast LeMoGow reacted, right? But 22 to 6, down this much, down 10,000 before 20 minutes, that's in your head. Myrmidons might have been able to rotate onto that, but I feel like there's just a lot of frustration on the team right
don't
now.
do it to him. Adapting.
The speed buff?
It got stolen. I'm so sorry, LeFaeles. Like, that's just that right there kind of is this game.
That's the icing on the cake.
That's this game. Like, that just kind of, like, that shows you, like, just how this game has gone. Adapting, wards over the speed buff, throws out Tectonic Rift, waits a second, hammers over the wall, and he takes it. And fails, kind of just stands there and looks at it.
2 people caught in the stun from Thor. Damage coming out from Nox as well. Dark Dodo does what he can, but it's just not enough as Yammyn cleans him up one more time.
Epsilon, they're going to turn their sights to the Fire Giant. It's going to be hard for Myrmidons to fight into this. Cupid split pushing dual lane, 3 members of Myrmidons grouped in the mid, but it doesn't look like they want to rotate in, does it? Oh yeah, they want to, but they've waited so long, and the ward vision from Epsilon not going to allow them to do it. Fire Giant taken.
Yeah, the power of emilitoo, not emilitoo, but the character, a Muzen to take down objectives, it's so high, largely because of the attack speed boon given to him by his hives.
I mean, emilitoo has so much attack speed in his builds. Like, he has an attack speed based build. He's probably overcapping once those hive Hives come out. 2 seconds right now, so when he throws out his Hive, I actually want to see if it's above. Okay, no, he's actually just below cap.
0.02 below the attack speed cap is 2.48 is what emilitoo's sporting right now. We'll ride along with him as we see him and his team Epsilon take out the first Phoenix of the game. 20:40 on the clock, and the Phoenix will fall.
And he's just destroying these towers at this point. iRaffer throwing out some chains, trying to zone members of Myrmidons off, and Epsilon, they're just going to systematically destroy these these Phoenixes. Blinking, and it looks like LeFaeles and Myrmidons, they want to fight,
wow.
But Dimi just blows LeFaeles up. 2 members pulled in by iRaffer's ultimate. Dark Dodo gonna fall to adapting. Tens left sitting on the ground, and LeMoGow just dashes into 4, tries to combine with Dardes for something, but it's just not enough. They find emilitoo, but all 5 members are gonna die for it.
Yeah, emilitoo took a spill, and here comes adapting, cleaning up number 5. Cupid, he's got no way to jump over the wall, and iRaffer takes that life. That's 5 down on the side of Myrmidons. So Epsilon sporting their Fire Giant buff. They'll take down the second Phoenix of the game and take out the third, and most likely look to the Fountain and the Titan. Tins will be up in a matter of seconds, as will LeFaeles, and Dark Dodo will follow quickly behind. But Epsilon might have a big enough window, and more importantly, strength on their side to take out the Titan, opting to play it safe this time around. Epsilon will retreat back into the jungle.
They've still got a minute on the Fire Giant buff. I expect them to go... Nope. They did lose emilitoo. I did expect to see a Gold Fury, but now that I see that emilitoo's gone, it's probably not worth the risk. They're all just going to back and probably make their way back over and look for the final couple kills and lock down this Titan.
I mean, there's 15,000 gold on the side of Epsilon as far as the lead is concerned. I don't think this team is too concerned at the moment, but of course, we've seen crumbles before from this spot. I mean, what was it, 18,000 gold? We saw a comeback from?
Not at 20 minutes, right? Not with 3 Phoenixes down at 22 minutes. Like, I've seen 3 Phoenixes down at 35 minutes. The comeback happens because players are like level 18, 19, even 20. But when your jungler's 14 at 22 minutes, and everyone else on the other team is basically level 20. Like no one's even level 18 on the side of Myrmidons. So they're so far behind in just experience alone.
Right. What Myrmidons really need to focus on is they don't even have the Phoenixes to fight on. The Titan deals an incredible amount of damage. What Myrmidons need to do right now is, and I like this play on the left-hand side, they need to find a pick, and that's what they'll do. Dashing forward is LeMoGow, gets a stun or a slow onto emilitoo. It's not enough. Stuck in 2 ultimates. The Bumblebee will stay alive as adapting shows up just in time to save the life. emilitoo will fall onto the hand of Dark Dodo, but adapting has already done his damage. 1 down on the side of Epsilon, 3 down on the side of Myrmidons, and Epsilon focuses onto the Titan, and it falls.
That was just kind of systematic destruction from Epsilon. I mean, we talked about it, right? The new, I want to say new duo lane, but the not typical duo lane coming out from Myrmidons and Dardes and Tins, able to find first blood on emilitoo, but after that they played incredibly passive simply because they had to, right? They're up against adapting store, and they didn't want to risk trying to ward deep into the jungle because they know how well Epsilon collapses. We're going to take a quick look at the first blood and see how that happened, because we didn't actually see it on screen, so I'm actually interested. Okay, yeah, he just got comboed, and it's stuck in place from the roof.
With iRaffer gone, emilitoo was all by himself, and early game, Amusing Cobb is just not able to really find a way out. A lot of what Amusing Cobb has, because he doesn't have a traditional dash or leap or jump or escape button. The way he gets out is really just the movement speed provided to him by
it's about killing the other player,
well,
right?
Sure, yeah.
It's like, I'm going to kill you, but I mean, it's a 1v2 at level 2. It's not happening that early for AMC. It doesn't have the damage output. Adapting, though, player of the game, played phenomenally. No surprise here. Him and Yammyn really combined for a lot of rotations and a lot of shutdown potential with that Nox and Thor combination.
12, 1 and 12 on this character here today, and a lot of what we saw was very interesting. I'm very excited to see this third-person perspective. That's the Nox that we were talking about. Maybe we'll even get a chance to see that work in the ultimate, but not for nothing. So Myrmidons had a couple of moments where they made plays. They isolated a single player, and they attacked him and tried to get it done. Adapting, even as far ahead as Epsilon was at the moment, with the game sort of clearly in their system, Adapting still kept it in his mind to save his teammates. Still had it on his mind to land on top of the opponent. Myrmidons made some good plays, isolating players, which is all you really can do when you're down that far behind. But Thor, adapting, made sure.
Here it is.
2 for
Yeah, just look at that burst. Like, look at that burst.
Yep.
Dark Dodo's like, man, I can't even press beads by the time I'm dead. And I'm pretty sure that was, he comes landing down, bursted. I'm pretty sure, like, he just didn't expect it. And honestly, when you're expecting a gank, when you hear the Thor out go up, you actually are ready to press your actives. You're ready to press your beads, your Aegis to make sure to escape the ganks. But when it kind of just happens on you, it's panic once in a while, and it's very hard to react and hit beads in time, especially when the burst was probably under 2 seconds. It was probably less than a second that he died.
It's 2 players combining to deal what they can. Epsilon's victory winds up 5 players combining to do what they can, and Alpha Draft is going to feature all 5 of those players. You can see all members of Epsilon on the bottom of your screen. They're going to be representing Alpha Draft's top performers of this one, because this one was just 12-1-12 with the jungler, and everybody followed suit.
Even iRaffer coming up there with 40 points, played phenomenally. And emilitoo also, he actually, I believe, had most of the deaths on Epsilon, but still put out so many kills, so many assists, and you see him climb up there at a pretty solid 40 points.
Yeah, excellent play coming out from the guys on Epsilon. Again, Myrmidons, unfortunate for them, they didn't have their full roster, and not just a substitute, but a lot of position swaps. LeFaeles and LeMoGow, the only 2 players in their natural positions, with just 1 player off of the board. It was just a single player, Jermaine, not here. You can see just how important a single player is. Dardes moves from his natural support into the hunter role. They move Tins from mid into support, and then their substitute winds up playing mid.
I mean, that just kind of looked like my ranked games, right? It's just like, all right, I queue up and I get a jungler and a mid against me who are rotating, and I'm sitting in my lane, and then I get ganked, and I'm like, where is everyone? Like, oh, we're getting back harpies, right? Like, I don't mean to be mean, but Myrmidons, they were playing as individual lanes. They weren't playing as a team that game. And you could see it. The only single time I saw them rotate as a team was to that right-hand side when LeMoGow was getting ganked by adapting, and they were able to cut off Yammyn and get 1 kill on him. And then LeMoGow was almost able to 1v1 emilitoo. emilitoo, though, did come out on top of that.
Right.
That was it. Everything else was just like going in one at a time or just sitting in your own lanes while everyone else is farming.
Exactly, and it's really tough to evaluate this if you're home playing sort of armchair smite coach. It's rough to really look at this, and it's easy to say.
I'm playing desk smite coach.
All right, champ. It's easy to say how it just this team didn't do too well, but the individual skill is there. It's just when you're playing different positions, the game is so drastically different from position to position. So your abilities, not your abilities, your responsibilities in the jungle, or for more importantly, your responsibilities in the mid lane or support or hunter, are drastically different from all 3 of those positions. So Dardes, used to playing support, what he's asked to do on support is wildly different than what he's asked to do on hunter. So when you see this lack of communication, you see this lack of rotation, you see this lack of cohesion and teamwork, it's not because the individual players lack that thought process and mentality. It's because when it comes together, those responsibilities are just so foreign to these players.
I mean, individually, these players are the 1% of the 1% of smite players. Like,
sure, yeah,
they're better than me. Like, they would destroy me. Maybe season 1 I could compete with them. Not now, though. I'm terrible now. I don't. I feed the people I've never heard of in ranked, and I'm just like, come on, man, what is this? But no, I mean, these are great individual players, but you could see that the teamwork wasn't there. Right. They may not be comfortable with the rotations that you see, and especially against Epsilon, who is not only so strong individually, like in their own roles, they're one of this is why Epsilon is nearly undefeated, because not only are mechanically they are the top players in their roles, bar 1 or 2 others,
but they've spent so much time really honing their teamwork.
And you see some of the most intense teamwork out of this roster. I mean, they ward bait frequently. They know when an enemy will place a sentry ward, and what they do is they just go drop a regular ward right on top of that. They wait around the corner outside of that sentry ward's vision range. We've seen it happen. Like emilitoo, when he played Ares against them, when London Conspiracy faced them, he got abused. Every time he went to counter ward, they would pick him. And it's just like that's just the teamwork that this team has, and it's not something that Myrmidons have been able to bring, not only because they're new to this split, but also the role swaps.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just they're not comfortable.
That's my whole takeaway from this situation is, do I honestly think that Myrmidons would have taken game one? I thought in my heart of hearts that game twos are always on the table. Game one might have been tough, but with the role swaps, just a lot of mountain to really climb up. That said, it's over. The game is done with. One of the important things that players have to have in the SPL is short memory. We'll see just how short that is as Myrmidons get into game number 2. They try to